Welcome to the webinar on prospects in technology industry for the visually impaired by Kartik Sawhney. My name is Prashant Ranjan Verma. On behalf of National Association for the Blind Delhi, I welcome you all to this webinar. Kartik Sawhney, one of our NAB Delhi's superstars, one of the highest achievers of NAB Delhi, who is currently working with Microsoft in USA, will be sharing his experiences and his few learnings and some advice for the visually impaired to find opportunities in the technology industry. So Kartik, welcome, and you may please begin by introducing yourself, telling us a little more about yourself, and then you can speak on the subject. And viewers, I request you to put your questions in the live chat. In between the webinar, we will be taking up some questions. So welcome, Kartik.
Thank you so much, Prashant, sir. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you all for joining. I'll start off with a brief introduction. As sir introduced, I'm Kartik. I started off my education at NAB, went on to DPS in Delhi, where I basically was there for about 12 years, completed my high school from there. Got super excited about technology from a very young age, and got involved with basic web development and stuff like that in high school, and kind of knew at that point that I wanted to make a career in the technology industry. After high school, I came to the US to pursue my degree in computer science, did my bachelor's and master's from Stanford here in the US. I got super excited about what is known as human-computer interaction in college, which basically is about how does human interfaces, the way we interact with computers, basically the study of that interaction, and how can we improve that interaction? What does that entail? So got super excited about that, and that was my first specialization. Got super excited about artificial intelligence in the meanwhile as well, which is basically just another way of saying how can we teach computers to think? And so got excited about AI. During college, was fortunate to have a bunch of experiences in the tech industry that helped me make an informed decision when I graduated. So worked a little bit in computer science research, more specifically worked on an accessibility related project at IBM Research in Delhi, and then worked at Microsoft as an intern on their narrator team, which is, of course, as many of you know, their screen reader. And after that, got super excited about conversational agents. So many of you might be using Alexa or Siri on your phone. And so Cortana is Microsoft's version of Alexa or Siri. And so got super excited about being able to contribute to that space, especially given my interest in language and trying to see how computers can better understand us as people. So got excited about that and worked on a cool project as part of my internship. Then worked briefly at Uber, where I worked as a part of the driver intelligence team. Basically, the thing was how do we better understand what drivers are saying? So you can imagine that when drivers have certain complaints or when they want to give feedback to the administration, they don't necessarily, people cannot be reading millions of comments as they come in because, Uber पे there are like thousands of drivers, right? So कैसे हम ये कर सकते हैं कि सबके सारे comments पढ़े जाएं और कैसे उन सबको seriously लिया जाए? So that was the challenge that I was working on. How do we automate understanding of those comments? And this is what AI helps you do. AI helps you automate a lot of the workflows. AI helps you to make things that are manual, for example, tasks that are manual, that are repetitive, easier by automating them, by applying some intelligence to that using some computer software. And so I worked as an AI scientist there. वो सॉफ्टवेयर बनाने के लिए कि कैसे कंप्यूटर खुद समझ ले कि ड्राइवर ने क्या कहा है, and automatically we can triage that. And then once I graduated, I decided that I really loved the work that I did on Cortana, again, Microsoft's assistant. And so I took up a full-time job at Microsoft, where I am right now in Seattle, in the US. And I've been here since. I've been here for about 2.5 years now as a full-time employee. And I work on the language understanding component of Cortana. तो मैं इन सर्विसेज पे काम करता हूँ जो कि Cortana को हमें समझने में हेल्प करती हैं कि अगर मैं बोलता हूँ hey Cortana do this, or hey Cortana read the news, or hey Cortana read the first email that I received from Prashant sir, for example. Like, how does a personal assistant, a computer, take that input and convert it into something that it can understand, and it can then act on. So ये कुछ मेरे experiences रहे हैं tech industry के अंदर. I think in my experience, it has been one of the best careers that I could have opted for, because जो सब कुछ मैं करता हूँ, that's very accessible. Of course, कुछ tools होते हैं जो inaccessible होते हैं, but उसके अंदर भी, because you are a programmer in the tech industry, you can actually make a lot of those tools accessible as well by writing your own scripts. So it's been actually a pretty interesting career opportunity, जहाँ पर you can actually perform just as how, and if not better than the cited peers, because you have full control of what you can and cannot do. So that is pretty awesome in my view. Flexibility is amazing. You get to work when you want to work. Of course, there are, you want to meet deliverables and stuff like that. But I think the best part about working at a lot of these tech companies is no one is micromanaging you. You get a lot of freedom to explore. कोई नया मॉडल ट्राई करना है, कोई नई टेक्नोलॉजी ट्राई करनी है, कोई नया एल्गोरिथम ट्राई करना है, full freedom to do that. So there are all those perks of being in the tech industry, and plus of course you can hack, right? अभी जैसे कोई अगर challenge लगा के I'm not being able to do this because I'm blind, how can technology help? So you get empowered to hack for yourself, to develop technology that can help you and potentially other people in the community as well. So that personally has been extremely rewarding for me to be able to do that using my technical skills. So definitely a very interesting career opportunity. And I'm going to be talking a little more about some of the roles in technology. And also I'll be talking about how technology is not just coding, because kind of jab computer science or technology ke bare mein sochte hain, they think about programming, they think about, oh my god, I don't want to write code, I don't know if I'll be able to do it, oh my god, I don't have an engineering degree, I have not studied math and stuff like that. And while some of those things are important for some roles, it's not as if you cannot enter the tech industry without those skills. So in this,
Kartik, just interrupting you just for a moment. So many people have joined like slightly later. So for them, just I am like, so you are listening to Kartik Sawhney, and he is speaking on his experiences. So far, he has told us about his education and about his experience of starting work in the USA. He's right now speaking from the US. I think you are in Richmond, I think.
Seattle.
In Seattle, and he's working for Microsoft. So Kartik, yes, many people are watching, and already there are a few questions. I think I will take it up like at an appropriate time. So you may please continue.
Great, thank you. So I think I want to give you guys a sense of the different roles and the different positions that I have seen working in the industry, different people that I have met in their experiences, including people who are blind in some of these roles. And the message that I think the most important message that I want everyone to leave with is, yes, if you want to be a programmer, awesome. There's a lot of scope. Things are very accessible, a lot of accessible resources. But even if you don't want to be a programmer, if you don't have an engineering degree, there are so many ways, especially today, to get into the industry. And contribute. If you are excited about technology, if you are excited about the industry, if you're excited about gadgets and products, there's just so much potential to get into the industry and be successful. And I'll just be touching on a few of those roles. I wanted to start off with something that a lot of us are familiar with, which is the roles of accessibility testing and accessibility developer. It's critical that, of course, all of who would know better than us, right? It's important for applications to be accessible. Companies are investing heavily, not just because it's of legal compliances. For the longest time, of course, that was the primary reason. Companies have realized that there's a business case. It's in their interest to tap into this market and to do innovation, right, in this space. And so there's a lot of opportunities coming up, not just testing applications and software for accessibility, and oftentimes some fancy cool software that is not out there in the market yet that you get to test before it's released and give your feedback, which ensures that all of us can use it. So that's really an awesome opportunity to do that. But also, if you want to get excited, if you're excited about coding, thinking about how that entire process can be automated and improved. How can that process, how can we make sure that we're developing scripts that will automatically test for a lot of the accessibility bugs? Of course, there are a lot of those tools out there, but obviously, we're nowhere near an automated comprehensive accessibility checker. And so a lot of work is also happening in trying to understand and automatically remediate some of those accessibility bugs. There's a lot of innovation happening around accessibility in general too. So for example, there's this program called the AI for Accessibility program, where Microsoft बहुत ही ज़्यादा invest कर रहा है ऐसी applications पे जो सिर्फ accessibility पर focus नहीं करती है, more strictly, but use AI to try and make products that can help people in the community. Of course, many of you know about apps like Seeing AI. So that's kind of one product in that space from Microsoft, and the company is very heavily invested in trying to make similar products. Whether that is, Soundscape, which is an app I believe available in the US right now, but the whole point of which is to help you in navigation using 3D audio and stuff like that. So there's just so much innovation happening in the accessibility space that, if you're interested in that space, you can do whatever you want. You can either be a tester, you can be an engineer and write code to automate that process and make that process better for everyone, so that making everyone more productive and making sure that applications are accessible. Or you can actually go into AI and develop some very cool applications that can help others as well. So that's some work in the accessibility space that I'm seeing lately. A lot of interest. It's actually one of the things that especially Microsoft I've seen is so excited about, that I haven't seen a single keynote address or a single conference address by our CEO Satya without talking about accessibility. So you can understand the focus on accessibility in the industry right now. It's just amazing. You can also go into accessibility research, right? कि different तरीके समझना कि किस तरह से चीजों को accessible बनाया जा सकता है. Really talking to people with disabilities and understanding their experiences to then be able to make better products for them. All of those research opportunities are also available. Microsoft Research India, for example, has been doing a lot of amazing research in the space. They have a whole program, well, not specifically for that, but research fellows program, where you can go and learn about research, do your research as part of Microsoft temporarily. So a lot of space. Then of course we come to software engineering. So I started my career as a software engineer. So there are a few things here, a few tracks that you can pursue, right? So the first thing is just a web app developer. There's so much demand for developing web applications today. And while, for blind people, हमारे लिए front end थोड़ा सा मुश्किल हो जाता है, because it's hard for us to say कि UI कैसा दिखाई दे रहा है. So that can become a little tricky, but the backend stuff, कि server पे कुछ हो रहा है, जो actual action लिया जा रहा है, जो actual logic execute हो रहा है, वो सब हम बिल्कुल कर सकते हैं. So that's like a very interesting career opportunity in case you are interested in web app development. उसके लिए software engineering degree होना बिल्कुल ज़रूरी नहीं है. You can actually take a bunch of courses and develop your skills. And the biggest thing, in something like web development is you need to have a portfolio, right? So उसके अंदर experience सबसे ज़्यादा important है. आपने कई websites बनाई हैं जो आप share कर सकते हो अपने recruiter के साथ, या फिर आपके कई experiences हैं, तो वो सब चीज़ें बहुत important हो जाती हैं as opposed to mere computer science education in that space. So even if you get, for example, some non-paid internships or project opportunities, those are usually very good to have to be able to develop that portfolio and also to learn and get your experience. Because you can take a course on web development today, it's not going to teach as much as actual project-based experience is going to teach you, especially in that space. Programming is a very practical thing, and the more you do, the more you learn. So it's extremely important to really get hands-on and do it. So there are also a lot of accessible online resources. Happy to talk about that later. That you can learn web app development on. For example, Tutorials Point is a very good website. They cover things comprehensively, and it's fairly accessible as well. And there are of course other resources as well. Happy to point to those resources later. The other thing is of course mobile app development.
Kartik, may I interrupt you? Actually, a lot of questions are coming. Yeah. So far you have given us like 2 areas where visually impaired people could work, the accessibility space and software development. All right, thank you. And so people actually have posted some questions about your introduction part, your background part. So Sachin Porwal wants you to tell your story with IIT. And another user wants to know, did you face any discrimination in the US because of visual impairment? All right, probably briefly you can address these 2 questions. And sure. If you will remember, then when is Seeing AI coming to Android? Okay. So for now,
okay. I'll tell you the third answer. Sorry, I can't comment on that. It's just I can just say it'll be coming soon. That's all you'll get from me, unfortunately. Yeah. So the first 2 questions, my story with IIT, it was a little challenging. I think in those days, not to sound too old, but back in 2013, it was hard where IITs did not have suitable processes in place to support someone who was blind to take their entrance exam. So it was a little tricky to convince them. I unfortunately could not, it was a, long story short, I could not get some of the accommodations that I needed to take the exam successfully as a blind person. More specifically, they wanted me to work with a writer who was not familiar with math, physics, or chemistry, which was extremely hard given the technical nature of the IIT JEE exam at that time. So that was a challenge with them. And that is why I started exploring international opportunities and applied to a bunch of universities in the US and completed my education here. I would say though that IITs have improved quite a bit over the years in terms of making things accessible for people with disabilities. They're trying. There's a lot of interest. In fact, we work. I work with them sometimes indirectly through iSTEM, which is an organization that I co-founded with a group of friends to try and see how we can help share our experiences and resources to help them. So a lot of good stuff happening there. Super optimistic about the opportunities for others who might want to pursue engineering. There are, by the way, a lot of students who have successfully completed their engineering from IIT after, in the years following when I was supposed to take the exam. So things look good. And the second question, did I face any discrimination in the US? I'll say this. I mean, there are all sorts of people everywhere. It would be unfair and incorrect on my part to say that things are amazing in the US. You would never face any discrimination. That's far from truth. You do sometimes. And also remember that the US actually is a very diverse place with people from all over the world. And when you have people from all over the world, they bring with them their biases, right? They bring with them their cultural notions of disability. And so then, again, it's totally possible. Nothing too bad, to be honest. And I think part of that are the very strict laws here, where people are very careful and you go to great extent to make sure that you have what you need. I think in particular, corporates and enterprises, they are extremely helpful and provide accommodations. Now, my experience, though, is only limited to larger corporates. And so I'm not, and I think perhaps Uber being a slightly smaller company, where they've been good for the most part. Now Uber, again, I was the first blind employee that they ever had, and of course that was slightly challenging, right? Not because they deliberately wanted to discriminate against me, but they just did not know how to accommodate someone who was blind, and so that happens, and that continues to happen sometimes. But I think, again, if you are just open about with people about your disability and help them understand how you work, how you live, and beyond a point in time, people just accept you for who you are, and you make friends with people. So it's been a good experience overall, I would say.
Yeah. So Kartik, so some people are amazed with your achievements. So one user has asked, what is your visual impairment percentage, in their words? I know Kartik. So
Yeah.
Kartik is totally blind by birth. So he has achieved whatever he has achieved using, I think, mostly education, appropriate education and technologies. All right. So Kartik, you may now proceed to the next segment of your presentation. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I was talking about web app development and mobile app development and how you can get involved even without formal education. If you want to be a software engineer formally, typically, they want to see a 4-year computer science degree, or they would like to see like a master's degree in computer science. That doesn't necessarily have to be engineering. You can also do BCA, MCA as an alternative. That's perfectly valid and acceptable in the industry in India. And you can get involved. I know a lot of people who have done that and who are very, very senior positions today. So that's definitely an option and a route that you can take as well. For software engineering, a lot of the times I get questions about, oh, mujhe math aana chahiye ki nahi? And the short answer is, it's good to know, right? Because what is software engineering and programming? Software engineering and programming is really coming up with logic that you can feed into a computer that will help a computer to do whatever is it that you want it to do at a very abstract level, a very high level. और अगर आपको वो logic लिखना है, then obviously you need to think about it analytically. कि इस step के बाद अगला step क्या होना चाहिए, second step के बाद third step क्या होना चाहिए, right? So it helps to know math. It's not critical. No one is going to say, oh, can you do like this, apply the BODMAS rule, or can you go and do like calculus problem and stuff like that? No, I don't think I've ever encountered that in my industry experience so far. So nothing like that, but it helps to be analytical and just be very logical in your approach. And those skills are वैसे भी develop कर सकते हो, not necessarily through formal education. There are some fields, though, that do require more sophisticated stuff, more math, for example. So AI is one such field. जहाँ पर it's extremely important for you to have slightly more mastery of mathematical concepts. So, for example, if you want to do AI, you want to know calculus and other stuff like that, statistics and stuff like that. So, in case you're considering that option, yeah, I think some amount of formal math education is critical for you to be able to really understand in depth के क्या हो रहा है. Now, applied AI, जो कि basically सिर्फ बहुत सारे जो AI आजकल services हैं, उसके लिए आपको शुरू से करने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. बहुत सी companies, Microsoft, Google, Facebook आजकल बनी बनाई recipes, you may call it, देती हैं कि कैसे आप टेक्स्ट एक्सट्रैक्ट कर सकते हो एक इमेज से, या फिर आप कैसे किसी इमेज को डिस्क्राइब कर सकते हो. तो कई बार इन चीज़ों को जो ऑलरेडी बनी हुई हैं और इन कंपनीज के थ्रू अवेलेबल हैं, उनके लिए आपको ज़रूरत नहीं है. बट इफ यू रियली वांट टू मेक इट एज योर करियर, देन एंड टू बी एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड कि क्या हो रहा है, देन इट्स इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर यू टू हैव अ गुड क्वांटिटेटिव ग्रास्प फॉर AI. So these are some of the technical careers that I could think of, and you primarily program in a lot of these roles. I'd like to shift gears and talk a little bit about some of the other opportunities that you have in technology. So one of them is a product management or program management, some companies may call it. And इसके कई तरह के flavors आते हैं, इसके कई तरह की positions आती हैं. कुछ लोग कहते हैं, oh, it's like a business program manager or operational program manager or technical product manager या फिर just product manager. तो depending on कि आप कौन सी company में apply कर रहे हो, इस role की कई variants आपको मिल जाएंगे, each with their specific responsibilities. And so very broadly though, this is all about understanding the requirements and needs of your users and then translating those needs into something specific that your developers or coders can work on. So example देता हूँ मैं, जैसे कि Cortana पे मैं काम करता हूँ, right? So one of the feedback that we got was, I would love to listen to my emails hands-free in a car. कि मैं गाड़ी में बैठ के अपने ईमेल सुनना चाहता हूँ और मैं अपनी वॉइस से सब कुछ कंट्रोल करना चाहता हूँ कि go to the next email या फिर इस ईमेल को फ्लैग करो, इस ईमेल को mark as read and stuff like that. So given this feedback, of course they do an analysis to understand कि कितना important है, किन users को चाहिए, does it make sense to invest our time, money, effort on this or not. उस analysis के बाद product managers उसको एक specific product के अंदर design करते हैं कि what would that product look like, what would the experience look like, वो सब कुछ खुद नहीं करते. तो for example जैसे UX UI design जो है, visual design है, वो जरूरी नहीं है कि वो product manager खुद बनाएगा. Oftentimes there are visual designers that would do that job, but they own the product. They're like product managers in the sense that they define what the product should look like. They define who will do what. They define the timelines. They define all of that kind of stuff. So that is a very interesting role as well. Just you don't necessarily need to know how to code, nor do you need to have an engineering degree. In fact, a lot of product managers actually have management degrees where they know how to work with. I mean, collaboration is key there, right? You can imagine कि आपको designers के साथ काम करना है, आपको legal के साथ काम करना है to get an approval, आपको finance के साथ काम करना है, just a lot of stakeholders. आपको users से बात करना है, उनके साथ testing करना है. So you have things like that where you have a lot of like collaboration going on. So you need to have those skills as a product manager to be successful. So वो एक बहुत ही interesting career है जो कि आजकल बहुत ही demand में है. Almost सब tech companies में you need product managers to give ideas and to drive products to completion. And then, of course, there are more IT-oriented roles. And the IT-oriented roles से मेरा मतलब वो roles है कई बार जो engineers या फिर पूरी enterprise को support करते हैं in their administrative needs, in their IT administrative needs. So, for example, networking. How do we ensure that we have, that all of those networking needs and requirements are being taken care of? For example, there is a CCNA certification from Cisco that is available if you're interested to learn more about networking. And by the way, all of these that I'm talking about are being done successfully by blind individuals. So that's, those are some options in the IT space. There's Salesforce, of course, as many of you might have heard. Salesforce एक software है, जो company है जो software बनाती है CRM के लिए, customer relation management and stuff like that. उनके लिए software तरह तरह के बनाती है. In fact, there's an organization called Bosma Force that actually has accessible instruction or accessible courses on Salesforce in case someone is interested to go in the IT direction and help an organization with their IT needs. Now again, that is not software engineering, so I just want to make sure everyone understands the difference. Usme coding not necessarily, it's slightly higher level. So you need to be fairly technical, but not necessarily have a computer science degree to get into IT. For those people who might be interested in writing, for example, there are a lot of opportunities available there. So technical writing is an extremely important career opportunity because you can imagine कि जब कोई engineer एक code लिखता है या फिर and especially आजकल बहुत कुछ open source होने लगा है जहाँ पर things अब सिर्फ proprietary नहीं होता है. People want to contribute to each other's code, they want to collaborate, and so technical writing is emerging as a very interesting career opportunity in tech as well, जहाँ पर आप you need to be slightly technical enough to understand कि product क्या है, किस तरह से developer ने product को design किया है, architecture क्या है. Once you have that understanding, you just need to write it in a way that other people who are fairly technical can understand. तो documentation कैसे लिखना है या फिर public facing product specs कैसे लिखने हैं, बहुत से support channels होते हैं, वो भी एक opportunity है कि monitoring के कब support tickets आती हैं, especially आजकल बहुत कुछ cloud में जा रहा है, बहुत कुछ online हो रहा है, तो जब लोग complain करते हैं कि ये नहीं चल रहा या फिर वो नहीं चल रहा, it's not necessarily just product based complaints, right? कई बार लोग बोलते हैं कि ये server down हो गया या फिर ये website नहीं काम कर रही है, ये error आ रहा है, तो वो लोग जो ये सब कुछ देखते हैं, those are also support engineers, for example. That's also another opportunity that is out there. Now, of course, I'd highlight that sometimes some of these internal tools that these people might be using might be inaccessible, but you usually just work on a case-by-case basis to try and figure out workarounds. And most people that I know in the industry who are doing these jobs have been fairly successful in being able to advocate for their needs and figuring it out something with their organizations. Usually organizations want to work for you. They want you to be successful, and so they're willing to make these accommodations and provisions for you. Another exciting stuff that's coming out now is user interaction design or voice design. I was just talking about personal assistants. So आप में से कई लोग जो Alexa या Google use करते हैं, I mean, how is it? Who writes these dialogues? So आप बोलते हैं, hey Alexa, tell me some joke, or hey Cortana, tell me some joke, or whatever. I mean, it's not coming from this is no magic, right? Like it's someone has fed it with like a bunch of these things, right? And for you to have fun, for you to feel engaged, for you to have a conversation. So who does that? I mean, engineers don't do that, managers don't do that, so there have to be people who do that. And those are voice designers who जिनका job ही यही है to make sure that they can model different conversations. They can write about कि जब मैं ये बोलूँ तो assistant कैसे बोले ताकि उसका personality आग झलके, वो बहुत ही robotic sound ना करे, वो funny sound करे, वो और जब कुछ serious बोलूँ तो वो serious sound करे, stuff like that. So you have conversational designers who work on or voice designers who work on that stuff as well. Of course, different companies have different names for these positions, but just to give you an idea of what's out there in the industry. And then, of course, many of you who are in other industries like legal, finance, those, of course, mainstream jobs are available. In fact, there are some very interesting things that are coming in AI. One of them is, for example, ethics, right? And ethics in AI. कि जब हम लोग मॉडल्स को यूज करते हैं तो हम कैसे इंश्योर करें कि कोई बायस नहीं आ रही है, या फिर let's assume, I mean, I don't know how many of you have heard about or used face detection. One of the things that is, how do we make sure that this does not just work for some people, but it works for everyone? How do we make sure कि जब हमसे ये personal assistants बात कर रही हैं तो वो कुछ racist comment ना करें, या फिर they're not biased in any way? So all of that stuff is important stuff right now that companies are working towards, especially in the legal space. And so ethics in AI, for example, is another thing that's gaining a lot of momentum these days. Privacy is another thing. You don't want companies to misuse your information, and there are severe penalties now, especially with what Europe has done with what is known as GDPR. And so, there's a lot of stuff happening in that space as well. So a lot of legal opportunities and to contribute as well in the tech industry, in case you're interested. And again, then the other thing is to be your own boss, to be an entrepreneur. I was talking about how sometimes I like to hack on problems that I see, and so that's exactly what you do as an entrepreneur. You see a problem, and you try and come up with a solution using technology, and then you create your own company, and then you grow your company. In fact, that is kind of what I do with iSTEM, for example. Try to see how we can develop technology to help people with disabilities, various kinds of disabilities. So that's actually another interesting opportunity to get involved and get cut. And I think the big thing there is you need to be a person who is willing to take risk, because startups, it takes a lot of work. It's not like a job. Okay, you just do it and you'll be successful. It's a lot more than that. You need to have multiple skills. You need to understand marketing. You need to understand business. You need to talk to people and get their feedback. So everything that I just talked about, essentially you and a few other people who are working with you have to do all of that as entrepreneurs. So it sounds challenging, but it's a lot of fun, and it teaches you a lot. At least in my experience, I think that's one of the best things I've done in university, and now that teaches me so much stuff that also then helps me in my day job. To navigate difficult conversations, to just innovate and stuff like that. So that's a pretty exciting opportunity as well. So that's kind of like, in a nutshell, the various career opportunities that I wanted to talk about. I'm wondering if there are any other questions, Prashant, so that we can take at this time.
Yes. So Kartik, there are several questions, and I would like to actually, for the benefit of people who are watching, I'd like you to kind of again summarize in just bullet points the various opportunities that you spoke about, and maybe in Hindi. Good that you were speaking in Hindi in between also sometimes. तो जो मेन अपॉर्चुनिटीज हैं उनको जस्ट एक बुलेट पॉइंट्स में एक बार आप फिर कह दो, और किस अपॉर्चुनिटी के लिए कुछ खास टेक्निकल क्वालिफिकेशन की जरूरत है, वो भी साथ में आप अटैच कर सकते हो.
ठीक है. तो शुरुआत करते हैं एक्सेसिबिलिटी से. एक्सेसिबिलिटी टेस्टिंग और एक्सेसिबिलिटी डेवलपमेंट एक बहुत ही इंटरेस्टिंग अपॉर्चुनिटी है अवेलेबल, जहां पर आप सीख सकते हो, जहां पर आप काम कर सकते हो टू मेक एप्लीकेशंस को और एक्सेसिबल बनाने के लिए. बहुत ज़्यादा डिमांड है इसकी इस समय, बिकॉज कंपनीज को समझ में आ गया है कि सिर्फ एक कंप्लायंस के लिए ज़रूरी नहीं है, वैसे भी ज़रूरी है. इसके लिए थोड़ा बहुत एक्सपीरियंस होना ज़रूरी है, स्पेशली अगर आप डेवलपमेंट में जा रहे हो तो वहाँ पर आपको जरूरी नहीं कंप्यूटर साइंस फॉर्मल एजुकेशन हो, बट दैट हेल्प्स. अगर आपके पास है तो उससे मदद मिलती है, लेकिन जरूरी है. सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियरिंग की अगर बात करूं तो वेब ऐप डेवलपमेंट, वेबसाइट्स बनाना फॉर एग्जांपल, वो या फिर मोबाइल ऐप्स बनाना, वो काफी पॉपुलर हो रहे हैं आजकल, बिकॉज सब कुछ मोबाइल पर हो रहा है अब. उसके लिए भी जरूरी नहीं है कंप्यूटर साइंस एजुकेशन का होना, लेकिन उसके लिए आपके पास पोर्टफोलियो होना जरूरी है. आपको एक्सपीरियंस लेना है, आपको तरह तरह के प्रोजेक्ट्स पे काम करना है, ताकि आप कुछ दिखा सके एक प्रोस्पेक्टिव एम्प्लॉयर को कि मैंने इन तरह के प्रोजेक्ट्स पे काम किया है, ये मेरा एक्सपीरियंस है. तो वो काफी हेल्पफुल होता है. अगर आप सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियरिंग में जाना चाहते हो तो उसके लिए जनरली फॉर्मल कंप्यूटर साइंस एजुकेशन या फिर BCA MCA इस तरह की एजुकेशन का होना जरूरी है. आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस या AI एक और नई अपॉर्चुनिटी है जो लोग इंटरेस्टेड है. बेसिकली ये फोकस करती है कि कैसे कंप्यूटर्स को हम सोचना सिखा सकते हैं, कैसे उन्हें इंटेलिजेंट बना सकते हैं. इसके लिए फॉर्मल एजुकेशन जरूरी है. आपको मैथ स्किल्स, मैथ होना भी जरूरी है. जनरली कॉलेज लेवल मैथ या 12वीं तक का मैथ इसके लिए जरूरी हो जाता है. प्रोडक्ट मैनेजमेंट एक और फील्ड है जिसके अंदर आप यूजर्स, कस्टमर से इंटरैक्ट करते हो, आप प्रोडक्ट को डिफाइन करते हो कि प्रोडक्ट कैसे बनना चाहिए, उसके लिए क्या क्या जरूरतें हैं, क्या क्या रिक्वायरमेंट्स हैं. तो अगर आप प्रोडक्ट्स का आपका शौक है, गैजेट्स का आपको शौक है, और आप इस फील्ड में आना चाहते हो लेकिन आप कोड नहीं करना चाहते हो, तो ये एक बहुत ही इंटरेस्टिंग अपॉर्चुनिटी है जो आप कंसिडर कर सकते हो. इसके लिए कंप्यूटर साइंस एजुकेशन होना जरूरी नहीं है. ये तरह तरह के रोल्स होते हैं प्रोडक्ट मैनेजमेंट के. कुछ टेक्निकल होते हैं, कुछ टेक्निकल नहीं होते हैं. टेक्निकल जो होते हैं उनके अंदर वो थोड़ा सा प्रोग्रामिंग मांगते हैं, तो आपको हो सकता है कुछ जरूरत हो एजुकेशन की, लेकिन जो नॉन टेक्निकल है उनके लिए होना जरूरी नहीं है. इनफैक्ट MBA भी काफी लोग करके प्रोडक्ट मैनेजमेंट में आते हैं, टेक में काम करने के लिए. लॉट ऑफ माय फ्रेंड्स एक्चुअली नेवर स्टडीड कंप्यूटर साइंस. उन्होंने कभी कंप्यूटर साइंस पढ़ा ही नहीं था, जो प्रोडक्ट मैनेजर्स हैं, और मैनेजमेंट स्कूल, बिजनेस स्कूल से जाके वो लोग इस फील्ड में आए. फिर कुछ नेटवर्किंग अपॉर्चुनिटीज, IT अपॉर्चुनिटीज हैं, जहां पर आपको प्रोग्राम बनाने नहीं होते हैं जो कि कस्टमर्स तक जाते हैं, बल्कि आप किसी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन की IT नीड्स, जैसे कि नेटवर्किंग हो गया या फिर और तरह के सॉफ्टवेयर जो कि मदद करते हैं किसी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन को चलाने में, उन तरह के सॉफ्टवेयर पर मदद कर सकते हैं. तो सेल्स फोर्स हो गया, नेटवर्किंग के कोर्सेज हो गए, ये सब चीजें हैं. टेक्निकल राइटिंग एक और अपॉर्चुनिटी है उन लोगों के लिए जिन्हें लिखना पसंद है. तो इसके अंदर बेसिकली जो भी कुछ टेक्निकल कॉन्सेप्ट्स हैं जो आपकी कंपनी बना रही है उसके बारे में लिखना लिखना, उन्हें external forums में डालना, blogs लिखना, कई बार a lot of the times ये marketing के साथ काम करता है कि कैसे हम लोग इन्हें promote कर सकते हैं, तो वो सब एक है. यूजर इंटरेक्शन डिजाइनर या फिर वॉइस डिजाइनर, आजकल जैसे कि बहुत सारी एप्लीकेशंस हैं जो कि वॉइस ड्रिवन है, एलेक्सा हो गई या फिर सिरी हो गई, कोटाना हो गई, जिनसे आप बात कर सकते हैं, क्वेश्चंस पूछ सकते हैं, राइट. तो इनके डायलॉग्स को डिजाइन करना कि वो क्या बोले, कैसे वो मुझे हंसाए, या फिर कैसे वो जब मैं सीरियस क्वेश्चन पूछ रहा हूँ तो वो सीरियसली जवाब दे, तो वो सब जो चीजें हैं वो वॉइस डिजाइनर्स करते हैं. तो वो भी स्पेशली वो कंपनीज जो कि इन प्रोडक्ट्स को बना रही हैं, वो लोग काफी इन पे काम. ऑफ कोर्स और भी तरह तरह की जॉब्स हैं. लीगल में अगर आप हैं तो बहुत अपॉर्चुनिटीज हैं, फाइनेंस में अपॉर्चुनिटीज हैं, एचआर में अपॉर्चुनिटीज हैं, मार्केटिंग में अपॉर्चुनिटीज हैं, बिकॉज ऑफ कोर्स किसी भी टेक कंपनी को ये सारे रोल्स भी चाहिए. So these are also opportunities available. और लास्ट मैंने बात की थी वो थी एंटरप्रेन्योर, कि आप अपने खुद की कंपनी चला सकते हैं, आप खुद टेक्नोलॉजी बना सकते हैं. स्पेशली हमारी कम्युनिटी में बहुत सारी चैलेंजेस अभी भी हम लोग फेस करते हैं, तो हाउ कैन वी एड्रेस दोस चैलेंजेस. बट ऑफ कोर्स मेन स्ट्रीम कंपनीज भी, कि कैसे हम बेटर ई कॉमर्स कंपनी बना सकते हैं, या फिर कैसे हम बेटर टेक पावर्ड हॉस्पिटैलिटी इंडस्ट्री को हेल्प करने के लिए कोई वैसी कंपनी बना सकते हैं. सो जस्ट लॉट ऑफ ऑप्शंस, जो भी आपको अपॉर्चुनिटी दिखे आप खुद अपनी कंपनी भी शुरू कर सकते हैं यूजिंग टेक्नोलॉजी. सो these are some of the opportunities जो इनके बारे में मैंने बात की.
यस, एक्सीलेंट. तो अभी जो विजुअल इम्पेयर्ड जनरेशन है, इनमें से बहुत से लोग ऐसे हैं जिन्होंने टेक्नोलॉजी बहुत बाद में अडॉप्ट किया, और टेक्नोलॉजी अडॉप्ट करते करते वो कॉलेज एजुकेशन वगैरह कर चुके थे और टेक्निकल एजुकेशन कोई प्रॉपर फॉर्मल डिग्री एक्वायर नहीं कर सके. तो उनके लिए भी कार्तिक ने बहुत से एडवाइस दिए कि बहुत से ऐसे फील्ड हैं जिनमें आप अभी भी काम कर सकते हैं. We probably switch to English now, Kartik. There are a few questions about you actually. So, is it true that you wrote your class 12th exam using the computer and there was a mistake in your results? So that is one question. And another one.
Well, that's more widely known
take it up
than I thought.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually surprised and laughing it off because I think it's more widely known than what it was. Yes, there were issues, and yes, I took my exams on the computer, and there were some issues with the results. So yes, you're correct.
But this is not to discourage anybody from using the computer to write any exam. I think that is the way people should go.
Definitely,
actually.
yeah.
Yes.
It is very empowering, like that independence that comes with it. Probably not sure for anything, for you to review and answer 1,000 times, as many times as you want. I think that convenience, that independence is extremely valuable.
Yes, and in your work, do you face any challenge using new applications? Like probably they are referring to accessibility issues, I think. And what do you do?
Yes, as I said, yes, there are challenges, and to be very honest, accessibility is a bigger challenge with internal applications, because external facing applications, they're supposed to abide by compliance and rules and stuff like that, CAG and stuff like that, right? So they have to be accessible, they have to meet those standards, otherwise anyone can sue them. But internal applications, it gets tricky. And that is where I think you actually become a much better developer. So what I've started doing in those situations is I know that if I'm going to complain about it and I'm just going to try to get people to fix it, it's not going to happen because it's going to take a long time. You can imagine that Microsoft is a company which has, 5, 6, 7 blind developers. It's hard to sometimes make a case to make all of the internal applications accessible. And in fact, some of those applications, I might be the only one who's using that application based on, what you're trying to do. And so to expect that, someone is going to come and look into it immediately, I think, it never happens like that. Everyone has their own priorities, and there are certain objectives that an organization has for a particular time. Not to say that they don't do it. I think everyone is very helpful, forthcoming. They want to make things right. No one does it deliberately, but it's just that the turnaround time can be a lot in many cases. So the approach that I take is I try to develop my own technical skills, and I say, well, okay, this is a challenge that I have here. What can I do to try and make it work? Right, and sometimes the answer is easy. Write simple scripts. Sometimes the answer is not. In which case, For example, you need to do things differently. As an AI scientist, I often have to deal with a lot of data, petabytes of data, and so it's very easy for my sighted co-workers to visualize that data as graphs and understand, okay, यहाँ पर ये data ठीक नहीं है, या फिर यहाँ पर anomalies हैं and stuff like that. I mean, I don't have that luxury. So how do I go about doing that? Sometimes it is slightly more cumbersome, and I have to go the table route, and I have to look at those manual tables and understand what's going on. Sometimes I'll write my own scripts to understand statistically कि कहाँ पर pattern टूटा या फिर कहाँ पर anomaly आया and all that kind of stuff, right? So it really depends on what I'm trying to do. And that's actually been very helpful for me to develop my technical skills and to be more innovative. So yeah, that's kind of how it works for me.
All right. So yes, more questions. Akash Kumar Gupta is asking if you can recommend any course or certification for accessibility testing.
Yeah, I think for learning, of course, DQ is really good. And I believe, actually, and you can comment more, sir, I think NAB Delhi also started a course, right, on accessibility testing as well. And of course, there are now professional certifications like the IAAP that you can take to be certified in the space. I don't know if you would like to maybe elaborate on that one.
Yes. So yeah, IAAP has some certifications, and DQ has some online courses. They are free as well. So I think people can start with DQ or some other training course. Several other NGOs, Indian NGOs, are also offering accessibility testing. I think a lot of self-learning is required, and then maybe you can take one of the IAAP exams. All right. So Vijay Raj has written about her young daughter. Um, uh, so Vijay Raj, I think you need to particularly get in touch with us, NAB Delhi, or some other such organization. You are talking more about motivating your daughter and maybe some basic uh, independent living training. So we can help you get in touch with us. Okay, so somebody had asked, are you facing any challenges in maintaining social distancing these days, Kartik?
To be honest, I haven't gone out in a long time. So social distancing, of course, it doesn't really arise all that much for me. I don't know what the world is going to be post COVID. So we'll see then what happens.
Yes. So, so that was my curiosity also. What is the condition in America? So Kartik told us that they are also under a lockdown, and they are working from home. So Abhishek Tayal says your voice is very motivating. Okay.
Thank you.
Tell us about accessible study material at Stanford. Okay, this question is from Sachin.
Stanford was pretty accessible. I think one of the best things at Stanford is like most American universities, they have their own disability department. And so, whatever format you want the material in, they make sure to convert that inaccessible material into accessible material for you. Even beyond that, right? If you need, for example, note taking, if you need, so for example, I used what they call a verbal descriptionist for describing a lot of the diagrams to me. So those are also services available here as well. Of course, tactile diagrams and other such services. So I think for the most part, it was actually pretty inclusive and pretty accessible for me as far as my education at Stanford goes. So.
Okay, so Kartik, I have a suggestion. So can you kind of organize a session, maybe yourself or through someone else, on using Cortana? So there are some requests regarding that. People are not really using it. They are using the voice assistants on Android and iOS and all, but not really so much on Windows. So
sure, happy to do that.
Yeah, so maybe we can plan it in the coming weeks. Okay, sure. People are interested in knowing more about you personally, it seems. So somebody's asking, have you met Bill Gates and Satya Nadella?
The answer is yes. I was fortunate to present to Satya a project that I was working on, and I think he's probably one of the most inspiring people that I've ever met. Bill, I've met in in a kind of an informal setting, or in form of a more formal setting. It was just like as part of an event, and I just happened to meet him and introduce myself. So Bill, not so much. Satya, yeah, I had a good conversation with him. So yeah.
Somebody has asked Akash actually, are the opportunities you talked about available in India or mostly in foreign countries?
Oh, totally in India. So I was actually very deliberate when I was planning this to make sure that these opportunities are available in India. Most of what I talked about, yes, they are in India as well. So yeah, you should not be able to, you should not face any difficulties in finding these opportunities there.
Oh, yes, yes, of course. Yeah.
Maybe I can actually touch a little bit more on how one of the last things that
Yes.
I had about how to get started briefly, and then we can take some more questions then.
Yes, yes, please. Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So again, I think just in a nutshell, talking about what's next and how you can get started. Of course, for those of you who are interested in computer science, perhaps those of you who are in class 11, 12 or younger, or thinking about this, while there are accessibility challenges in pursuing an engineering degree in computer science, it's not impossible. Obviously, there are lots of people who've done it, and so there's no reason why you wouldn't be able to do it. You just have to be persistent and passionate about it. That's obviously one of the opportunities, and then going to engineering schools and getting your degrees, formal degrees in computer science. Online courses, MOOCs are extremely popular. Coursera, edX, Khan Academy, Lynda, Udemy, a bunch of these. Of course, each have their own accessibility challenges. I found a lot of courses on Coursera, edX to be extremely accessible. It's also very interesting to see a lot of universities wanting to make their material accessible. So in case you want to take a course that is not accessible, I very strongly recommend reaching out to that school, to that professor, and asking them for help. And you would be surprised at the response you get. Most of them want to help. Most of them are okay with sharing their material in accessible formats. Stanford, for example, actually, we were doing a technical training program at iSTEM to help people learn some software engineering concepts, and the material was not accessible. And I reached out to them. They actually got a whole bunch of people. They hired a bunch of people just to make that material accessible for people who were taking this online course. So universities will certainly go to and do whatever they can to make that learning accessible for you. So I strongly recommend trying it out, especially Coursera, edX. I find the interface to be mostly accessible. Certifications that, as I said, depending on what you want to do, whether that's CCNA, whether that's some other professional certifications for specific things that you want to do in tech, all of those are options. In fact, a lot of us do these certification programs even after getting employed to make sure that we are up to date with latest technology. That's one of the things that you've got to do if you're in the industry to make sure that you're not falling behind, your knowledge is not falling behind. So professional certifications are key and very useful. Mentorship is key. You can find people who are in the industry, talk to them, maybe schedule monthly calls with them and ask them to help you out. I'm happy to talk to people who are interested personally. But I think that's been extremely helpful for me because that not only gives me some understanding of what's out there in the industry and that experience, but also sometimes serves as an accountability partner, right? They can hold you accountable to things that you want to do and make sure you do it. So that's another thing, another way to look at it. That's been extremely helpful. Freelancing, I talked about a lot of websites available out there. By the way, it's extremely these are some really good opportunities, right? So some of them, paying you as much as $100 an hour. So those are, again, some really good opportunities to look at and consider in case you want to go that in the freelancing. But I think all of that, and this is, to just end this, I think online presence is extremely important, right? The first impression, as people say, is the last impression. So you want to make sure that you have your professional profile up to date on LinkedIn, for example. If there are blogs if you blog, make sure that your blogs have some information about some of the projects or your work, so that someone who is potentially considering you as a candidate can get more visibility into your work. and it becomes easier for them to understand what your strengths are, and your portfolio, of course. So those are some of the suggestions that I had in terms of getting started. And then, yeah, happy to now take questions, but also happy to chat with anyone at any point.
Okay, so uh, people want to know more about iSTEM and the work you are doing here in India.
Sure. So I found iSTEM with a group of friends. The goal of iSTEM is to try and help people get into technology. So we do a bunch of technical training programs. We do hackathons, webinars like these, for example. More in-depth webinars on specific tracks of technology, specific things. We'll actually be starting one soon, in fact, this year. So I invite you to check it out. And then also, one of the things that we are now increasingly involved in is development of technology to try and help people with disabilities using AI. That's something that we're focused on to make sure that we can scale our impact. And I'll actually be very shortly sharing some some more information about something that we are actually working on right now with all of you to check it out. So yeah, it's a lot about technology. It's a lot about getting people in technology and getting people in STEM in general, and mentoring them, advising them, providing them accessible training resources, mentorship, connecting them with a lot of our industry partners and stuff like that. That's kind of what we're doing at iSTEM.
Okay, good. So, okay, one question. Okay, I will take this. So Pragati says that she has difficulty using her hands and she is also visually impaired. Are there assistive technologies that can help her? Not exactly related to this session, but maybe you can just say something.
Yeah, I'm not so sure in case. I'm not so sure. I have to do my research.
Yeah. So I think mostly voice recognition or voice commands based technologies can help her, I think. And there are modified input devices also, I suppose. Many people in this condition are also very successful. They are making use of technology. So it's very much possible.
Yeah.
Okay. So Pathak says, who helped you to succeed? Are there people who help you in success? Something like that.
Yeah, I think it's definitely. I think it's been a very collaborative effort. My family, of course, my friends, teachers, mentors. You know, I think everyone that I've been in touch with right over the years. Prashant was actually the first person who taught me computers, so it all started with him. And then, of course, teachers in school, especially high school, when I took up science, they were extremely helpful and helped out with very visual stuff. So I think have been extremely fortunate to get support all along. So.
Okay. Vignesh wants to know how to proceed with a bachelor degree with subjects like physics or chemistry.
Yeah, I think I'm happy to chat in depth. I think that's a very high level question, and I'll be able to help better if you have specific questions there. But I think, again, on a high level, having access to tactile diagrams, to descriptions, to accessible material, whether that is in Braille or perhaps use Nemeth or not, I'm not sure, or digital math, for example, using something like MathML. All of those are out there in case you want to study physics and chemistry. So there are also some devices that help you do lab work independently. So yeah, happy to talk about this in detail later.
Okay, all right. I think we are coming to the end of the session almost. Let me see. So Kartik, maybe you can just share your iSTEM contacts probably, using which people can maybe send you some questions or any other contacts you want to.
Sure. In case you want to know more about iSTEM, you can go to our website. It's inclusivestem.org. That's spelled as INCLUSIVESTEM.org. You can personally write me at Kartik, that's KARTIK @inclusivestem.org. So happy to chat about any and answer any questions that you might have.
All right. Okay. So Pragati says thanks for our response, and Vijay Raj has also commented again. So that thank you. So people are listening, people are engaged. All right. So Karthik, probably we will do another session sometime, maybe on Katana or something else, and people
Sure.
can look forward to engaging with Karthik again. And Karthik has already shared his contact details. I see several questions in the chat related to science and maths and pursuing education in those subjects. So you may please get in touch
Yeah.
directly as well. All right.
Yeah,
So
there is actually also a series on YouTube. In case you're interested, we recorded a bunch of videos on different tools that are available. If you search for iSTEM channel on YouTube, you should be able to find a bunch of those videos as well. So feel free to check it out to learn more about the tools that are available.
okay, good that you mentioned. There was a question whether you have a YouTube channel. So it is iSTEM YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. All right. Good. Okay. All right. So thank you very much, Karthik, then, and thank you everyone who participated in this webinar. And we hope to connect with all of you soon. Thank you and
Awesome.
goodbye.
Thank you.